So how did this ceasefire deal between Iran and Israel actually get negotiated? We know President Trump was directly involved talking with Bibi Netanyahu, while Vance, Rubio, and my next guest talked with the Iranians. Here with what happened behind the scenes is Steve Witkoff, assistant to the president and special presidential envoy for peace missions. Steve, you have a lot on your plate, but you were tapped to help with this. How did we go from Israel bombing Iran and sending our B-2s with those bunker busters to brokering this ceasefire just days later? Take us inside these talks.
You know, Laura, I listened to your introduction, and you've got it right. So many people had it wrong about the president. He had an objective. He wouldn't have entered the war, entered this 12-day, as he calls it, war without that objective. The objective was to eliminate enrichment in Iran and weaponization capability on the part of Iran. And he achieved his objective. And he achieved it after 12 days. And so it was never going to be a forever war. It was never going to be a war just for war's sake. It was a war to achieve an objective that I think most Americans should be very, very satisfied with. I can tell you that I was in those discussions. I watched our commander-in-chief. He's got this uncanny ability to understand exactly when to push the button and when to pull out. He achieved his objective, and that was the end of it.
From the Iranian side of this, Steve, if you can share with us some of their concerns and some of their promises, given what we've seen and some of the reports with this leaked intelligence early assessment of what we know right now. What did Iran actually pledge?
Well, Iran throughout, since this conflict began, we've been talking to them about having some sort of peaceful settlement. And Iran's one caveat has always been that Israel had to stop its campaign. And once Israel fulfilled its objective, which they did, and once the United States fulfilled its objective, which it did, the total destruction of the enrichment capacity of the Iranian state, then the president was able to go to both parties and get a ceasefire done. And by the way, the proof is in the pudding. No one's shooting at each other. It's over.
Steve, this leaked intel assessment, it's an early look at what was actually accomplished on the ground, and I underline early, but it was leaked. Somebody decided to leak this from the DIA, and it's being used in the media, and it's all over today, that, Trump said it was obliterated, but it's not obliterated. It's set back months, but it's not over from Iran's nuclear program's perspective. Your reaction to that, and I assume you know what we're talking about with this leaked intel report.
Well, it goes without saying that leaking that type of information, whatever the information, whatever side it comes out on, is outrageous. It's treasonous. So it ought to be investigated, and whoever did it, whoever's responsible for it, should be held accountable. It could hurt lives in the future. Leaking is a completely unacceptable thing. But let me give you, because I've read all the damage assessment reports from not just our government, but from other governments. And I'm not going to get into anything that's top secret, but let me tell you for sure what happened here. There are three distinct facilities in Iran that we were concerned with. Isfahan, which is a conversion facility. You cannot weaponize unless you have what's called the conversion process at the beginning of enrichment, and then a conversion process to metallicize the material at the end of enrichment. That conversion facility, which, as far as we know, is the only facility in Iran that can do this, was completely destroyed at Isfahan. It's above ground. It was hit with a 30,000-pound bunker buster, and it could not survive that hit. So they have no conversion opportunity, and that means they cannot weaponize, even if they've enriched to 90%. Then there are two other nuclear reactors in Natanz, one above ground and one below ground. The below ground one, we know we eviscerated, and the above ground one, which had been hit by the Israelis and had been substantially damaged, we put another bomb on top of it just to make sure that it was eviscerated, and we know for a fact it was. Fordo is the last enrichment reactor that was operating there, and we put 12 bunker buster bombs on Fordo. There's no doubt that it breached the canopy. There's no doubt that it was well within reach of the depth that these bunker buster bombs go to, and there's no doubt that it was obliterated. So the reporting out there that in some ways suggests that we did not achieve the objective is just completely preposterous.
So your conclusion tonight, seeing what you've seen, is that Iran could not resume its nuclear enrichment program within a matter of months.
It's not even conceivable. The destroying of the conversion facility, which not a lot of people are aware of, that stops the enrichment process in the beginning, and it's needed to finish the enrichment process. Once you get to 90%, you now must metallicize the material, shape it into a round ball, a round metallic ball. That round metallic ball goes into the bomb. Without conversion, you can't begin enrichment, and you can't end enrichment in a successful weaponization. That was taken out. Then on top of that, the nuclear reactors, again, as I said, 2 at Natanz, 1 in Fordo, all 3 of those had most, if not all, of the centrifuges damaged or destroyed in a way that it will be almost impossible for them to resurrect that program for, in my view, and in many other experts' views who have seen the raw data, it will take a period of years.
Senator Mark Kelly joined a chorus of Democrat senators who expressed deep concern about what may not have gone right with this. Watch.
Because of these, unconstitutional actions, we don't know where the uranium is. We don't know if we destroy these sites. And we don't know if the Iranians are going to race to the development of a nuclear weapon, and we wind up with a situation that's similar to what we're dealing with North Korea. Nobody wants that. I think the best way to deal with it now is if we can get back to the negotiating table. Talk about this. There was no plan here. There was no goals.
Take it away, Steve.
I listened to these things. Of course there was a plan here. There was an objective. The objective was eradicate nuclear enrichment capability, which we did. And even if there was nuclear material that was hidden, it was then to eradicate the conversion building, the conversion process that existed at Esfahan, which we did, which now rendered it absolutely impossible to weaponize.
Well, he doesn't care about knowing
no
this,
matter
or
what.
I mean, yeah, I mean, they either don't care about the details. I presume he's a very smart individual. He would be able to comprehend those details, but they're not interested in the truth. They're interested in a political smear of this administration without any sense of, of magnanimity or common sense. And I got to say, Americans are watching this tonight, and they just throw their hands up. They don't know. They don't even have a response to that. But I've got to ask you one question, because what comes next, Steve, to negotiate a deal with Iran, as the ceasefire we hope holds, what would that look like, given what you've concluded about this uranium enrichment and the overall program? Obviously, you have to get inspectors in there. How would that be different from previous efforts to hold Iran accountable through inspections?
Well, first of all, the IEA is involved. By the way, the IEA, Rafael Grossi, I've talked to each and every day multiple times. He agrees with the assessments that I'm giving you tonight, Laura. So there's plenty of backup for the administration's opinion here. With regard to the Iranians, the president has said unequivocally that he wants to see, and he's hopeful for, a comprehensive peace agreement that goes beyond even the ceasefire. We're already talking to each other, not just directly, but also through interlocutors. I think that the conversations are promising. We're hopeful that we can have a long-term peace agreement that resurrects Iran, that brings it into the League of Nations, that creates long-term prosperity for Iran, and most importantly, allows for the GCC to grow economically. Eliminating this risk was crucial to the economic future and prosperity of the entire Gulf region. And we've achieved that. So I think now it's time for us to sit down with the Iranians and get to a comprehensive peace agreement. And I'm very confident that we're going to achieve that.
Well, that's exciting. Steve, I have about 15 seconds. Will you allow any uranium enrichment in this deal?
No.
Oh, that's 15 seconds.
Need it, Laura. Right. They don't need it. What they need, what they need is a civil non-enrichment program, just like Abu Dhabi has. They're running a reactor like that called Boucher, where they don't have enrichment and they're getting fuel from the outside. And we're going to work with them on this. But what they don't need is enrichment.
Steve, thank you very much for these details, your perspective, and for trying to set the record straight. We really appreciate it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.